Thank you for joining us today for Idaho Falls Rotary Club program. My name is Liza Leonard, and I am the president of the Idaho Falls Rotary Club. The Rotary Club is an international service organization with approximately 1.2 million members worldwide. Our motto is service above self. To address a little bit of club business before we proceed with today's program, I'd like to mention just a few items. We have chosen this month to select for the restaurant of the month Elevate Bake Shop. Many of you might be aware of Elevate Bake Shop. That was formerly also known as One Fine Cafe. If you'd like to show your support of this local restaurant, we would appreciate it. They generously had supported the duck races in the past, and we would like to show our appreciation to them as our selection of Restaurant of the Month for the Rotary Club. So that's Elevate Bake Shop. Following this meeting today, we will have a duck race committee meeting. That will be at 1 p.m. via Zoom. If you'd like to join the duck race committee meeting, please make a note in the chat and we will send you the link. Our district raffle is wrapping up. Our president-elect, Gina Stevenson, has taken on the role of collecting the raffle tickets and your donations. So please get those in to Gina Stevenson as that is coming to a close. And we do have a district conference coming up next week. District conference this year will be all virtual. We are holding that via Zoom. It will be on Friday, May 21st, and will be at no cost to Rotarians who would like to join that event. It will last from 6 p.m. till 8:30 p.m. that evening. Our next Rotary Club meeting will be via Zoom next Wednesday, May 19th. We will be meeting virtually for a classification talk with fellow Rotarians Gina Stevenson and Marianne Allison. Please join us to help get to know those Rotarians a little bit better. Our strategic planning process continues, and we are seeking your feedback. If you'd like to participate in the future planning of the club and have some input or some time to put toward this plan, please contact a member of the board. For June, we are very pleased to be able to announce that we will be able to gather again in person. So we will be resuming in-person luncheon and meetings starting Wednesday, June 2nd at the waterfront at Snake River Landing. If you have any questions about resuming in person, please feel free to reach out to a member of the board. Our program chair for this month is Catherine Smith. I will now turn it over to her to introduce today's program. Thank you.
Hello, hello. I'm so excited to be here today with all of you. I'm very much looking forward to getting back together in June. That will be an exciting day when we can greet each other in person. I am thrilled to welcome the Idaho Falls Police Department's chief with us today. Chief Bryce Johnson is here to give us an update on what's happening with IFPD. Chief Bryce Johnson has served as the chief of the Idaho Falls Police Department since August 2017. Prior to his appointment in Idaho Falls, Chief Bryce Johnson spent 4 years as the chief of the Juneau Police Department in Alaska and 21 years moving through the ranks of the Salt Lake City Police Department. Chief Johnson also served in the U.S. military for 8 years. He served much of that time as an intelligence analyst in the United States Naval Reserve. Chief Johnson holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Utah and a Master of Public Administration degree from Brigham Young University. Chief Johnson is married to his wife of nearly 3 decades, Jamie. They have 4 adult children, several grandchildren, and he spends much of his time with them as possible when he's not serving the department or the city of Idaho Falls. Please include your questions for Chief Johnson in the chat, the comments of the live stream, and we'll be back following his presentation. Welcome, Chief Johnson.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here. Juneau, Alaska, the capital of Alaska, there for 4 years, big salmon and big whales. But I am very grateful to be here because this is home. Before I get started, I just wanted to just say a quick word about Rigby Middle School and the school shooting there. I was so impressed with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and Rigby PD and the school and the school's response. And holy cow, the teacher. If I could just tip my hat to the teachers, how much they care and love those kids and what they do for them. The entire Idaho Falls Police Department started heading to Rigby, all of my detectives, all of our officers, and before any of us could get there, that teacher had already done amazing things. So I just wanted to thank them and thank the teachers and those people up there for the great job they did. We all had family and friends that were there, so thank you for that. Today I'm going to cover a couple of different things. I'm going to talk about some crime statistics for 2020. I'm going to talk a little bit about our update to our use of force review board. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what's happened at the police department, some structural changes, and then cover a little bit about the building that is being built. So, crime statistics. 2020 was a heck of a year. I don't know how to phrase it other than that. And we see that reflected in our crime statistics. The general pattern you're going to see from 2020 is that everything that was self-initiated or proactive work by police officers decreased by a good pace. The very low-level crime, what we call quality of life crime, was down dramatically. Not because it wasn't occurring, but because of the realities of COVID and restrictions in jails and courts and things like that. Those crimes just weren't able to be enforced for much of the year. But then we will see that the violent crime increased and the major property crime increased. So with a major reduction in self-initiated activity and a major reduction in the lower level quality of life crime, we saw an offsetting major increase in violent crime and major property crime, and the net effect was about a 1% increase in the total Idaho Falls Police Department calls for service. It averages to about 137 calls per day. That's about one call every 10 minutes or so. Our dispatch center, which dispatches for the police department, the sheriff's office, and the fire department, is just incredibly busy. They had a 5% increase in 9/11 calls from 2019 to 2020. And going back to 2017, there's been a 20% increase in 911 calls. Just in 2020, the dispatch center took 206,728 phone calls shared between those three agencies. So they're just incredibly busy at that dispatch center. Here's what the decreases are. Arrests overall were down 22%. Again, that reflects some well thought out restrictions at the jails. We were trying to make sure we could keep the jail open. The sheriff's office, the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office, and the sheriff were great partners through this whole thing. But the reality was we couldn't take people to jail that we used to take to jail. And so arrests were down by 22%. The self-initiated activity, the traffic enforcement, was down 10%. That's a reflection of the amount of other work that they had to do. The increase, this is that I'm going to show you next. The Dui arrests, which are correlated to those traffic stops, were down 8%. And again, drug arrests were down 17%. Most of that decrease is through the self-initiated proactive activity that our patrol officers in most years are able to do. But with the restrictions placed on them this year, that was down 17%. The Group A person crime, these are the most violent crimes, aggravated battery, assault, rape, kidnapping, murders, things like that. Overall, there was a 10% increase in our violent crime rate in 2019. What we saw was an 85% increase in aggravated batteries, which is an unfortunate number. That was a very large increase. The violence that occurred was unprecedented in 2020. We had 2 homicides, three if you count the negligent homicide as well. A typical year in Idaho Falls, we would have 1 homicide. Last year, I believe, year 2019, I believe we had 2. So we're looking at about a 200% increase in homicides over that time span. But those numbers are small, so those percentages get exaggerated with those smaller numbers. The good statistics to look at is that aggravated battery. We're seeing about an 85% increase in that major violent crime. One of the encouraging statistics, if I can say that there are some encouraging statistics in this, is that we had a 5% increase in clearance rates in this most violent crime in Idaho Falls. Clearance rates, that's the rate of the number of crimes that we solve. And I'm pretty darn proud of the police officers and the detectives that worked all these cases in 2020. When you see a spike in crime, you have that many more cases to investigate, typically you can spend less time per case, and so your clearance rate, you would expect it to go down. Those officers and detectives were able to handle that much more crime and still increase the number of cases they were solving is just a testament to the dedication that they have and how hard they worked through 2020. If we go back to 2017, we've had a 16% increase in our clearance rates going back to 17. So we're solving more crimes than ever. Our property crime, so major property crimes include burglary, arson, fraud, vehicle theft, and robbery. Overall, our major property crimes, we saw a 20% increase in 2020. That's a 14% increase in the burglary reports, 115% increase in vehicle burglaries. That statistic is striking because it's 115%, and we certainly had a significant increase in the number of vehicle burglaries that were done. We also started reporting those in the manner consistent with how we're required to report them. What I'm saying is we were underreporting them in years past for statistical reasons, but we got that right. And so that 115% isn't all an increase in that rate. Part of it is a change in reporting practice, but it was an increase. It's going to be somewhere in these same areas of about 80, 90% overall. 94% increase in vehicle thefts, and then a 33% increase in robberies. Robberies get counted under property crime, but robberies are actually a person crime as well because you have to have another person there that you're taking that property from. Robberies are very, very dangerous types of calls, and that 33% increase is not something we want to see continue. If we look at society crimes are designated as drugs, narcotics, prostitution, weapons violations. Overall, there was a decrease in this category by about 15%. Most of that's driven by the reduced narcotics investigations, which was caused by what was mentioned before, the restrictions in jail and the reduction of the number of stops we were able to make. So a 15% overall decrease. The weapons violations, though, which is a subgroup of that, increased by 46%. So even though we saw a decrease in drug enforcement due to the realities of what was going on in 2020, a lot more guns, a lot more weapons, a lot more weapon violations, that went up pretty significantly. And then the quality of life crimes, this is disorderly conduct, trespassing, and things like that. There was a 26% decrease overall in that category. As I explained this one, that isn't because there was 26% less of this going on. It was because this is the type of issues that, due to the restrictions through the pandemic, we were unable to have a response to. We were unable to have our traditional methods to try to enforce this type of crime. So it was still occurring, but our response to it was decreased by 26% due to the restrictions. Mental health. This has been a question I get a lot about 2020. There's been a lot of talk about how the pandemic would affect folks' mental health. And we saw a 19% increase in mental health calls in 2020. That is a lot, but that's tracking pretty close to what we saw the year before as well. If you go back to 2017, we've had a 49% increase in our mental health psychiatric incidents, and that number continues to spike and has been spiking for some time. That's not unique to Idaho Falls. That's a trend that we're seeing all over the country. This is some data we started reporting last year. This is the demographic data of the people that the police officers self-initiate a stop with. So this is when the officer gets to pick who they're going to talk to and pick who they're going to stop. We track the demographics of who they're stopping. The goal and what you hope is that police officers are stopping people based on violations of the law or observed behavior. It is illegal, immoral, unethical, and against our policy to stop people based off of race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender, or anything other than behavior or some purpose that's legitimate to law enforcement. So we track that to make sure we're doing it right. And I'm not going to go through every data point here, but the current census data shows that just over 80% of Idaho Falls identifies as white or Caucasian, and 90% of the traffic stops we made, the officers thought the person that they were stopping was white. 4.9% of the stops that the officers made, they thought the person was Hispanic, and Hispanics make up 14.8% of the population. And you can see those totals down there. I won't read them all to you. You have that table there. I think you can see that. In general, we stop Caucasian white people at a greater rate than they appear society, and in general, we stop most of the minority groups at a smaller rate than what they appear in society. What that seems to indicate to me, if I go back last year when we released the data as well, we have 2 years worth of data now, is your Idaho Falls police officers are exercising their authority in the appropriate way, and they're stopping people for the right reason when they're violating the law, and they're not having other reasons be the reason for those stops. So a couple of takeaways from that data. Your police officers are busy. It was the busiest year we've ever had. The violence inside that year was the most we'd ever had. More serious crimes are occurring that require more officers and more resources to handle. Some of those lower level crimes that dropped by 22%, you can send one officer too often. These higher level crimes that we saw those spikes in require 2, 3, 4, sometimes multiple officers, and then detectives to then work the case for days and weeks afterwards. So it was a lot of work, and they were very busy. That left less time to conduct more proactive work, less time to do traffic enforcement, and less time to address lower level quality of life crimes. And in the midst of all that, the clearance rates went up. The officers and detectives were able to solve more crimes than ever, and I'm really proud of what they were able to accomplish. So just to change topic for a little bit, use of force is always important, has been important in policing for my entire career. It gets reported a lot in the news, and so people think about it a lot. Our use of force numbers, I don't have them all right now, but we'll be releasing them soon. But we did make an update to how we do our use of force reviews. We've had a use of force review board in place in Idaho Falls for many years. We updated that process this last year to include 3 appointed civilian members. And these 3 folks have all been appointed to the board and approved by the city council. So the next time the board sits to hear a case, which will be our one open officer-involved shooting case, they will review that case. These 3 good people will be on that review board and will help us determine if we follow policies or to see what we can do better or how it went. I tell all the officers, one of our core values of integrity, that anytime we do anything or any action we take, we do it knowing full well that it's going to be looked at under the bright light of day, that everyone's going to know what we did, how we did it. And we are an open department, so I'm very grateful to have these 3 good people to be willing to take a deep look on these big cases and to review them and to make sure we did it right. And we look forward to that happening hopefully in the next month or so that they can review that case. Some of our department changes that we've had this year, parking enforcement. We used to do downtown parking enforcement. I think someone in here cares quite a bit about downtown parking. Our downtown parking responsibilities went to a private entity. It's the downtown folks, and so we no longer do that. But we did take on code enforcement, so we picked up a couple of employees from another city department, and we do code enforcement citywide, and that's an exciting thing. What we have found is that a lot of the people that have trouble following the city codes also have trouble following the more serious laws in our society. So the same folks the code enforcement people are interacting with are the same folks the police officers are interacting with, and this makes it a little safer for the code enforcement people because they have access to those police officers when they need them. Our Special Investigations Unit, this is our drug unit. So even though our narcotics enforcement went down, you saw those percentages down, the folks that specialize in narcotics, they are busier than ever. That decline was a reflection of the amount of self-initiated time the patrol officers were able to dedicate to narcotics enforcement because they do a tremendous amount of it as they do their patrols. But our Special Investigations Unit, which works major drug cases and puts together big investigations, they're busier than ever. We added a sergeant. We didn't add a sergeant. We transferred a sergeant from another portion of our department into that unit because they had so much they were doing, and they've really are doing a lot of work right now. The Greater Idaho Falls Police Foundation is getting set up. It's made of a bunch of really great community members. They're not quite set up to take donations yet, but I believe they will be soon. I believe they're going to have a focus to try to help get folks into some drug treatment. We have a lot of people in our community that are really struggling with substance abuse issues. And as a police department, we would far prefer for those folks to get in some treatment as opposed to have to be arrested and go to jail. So we've been working very closely with them, and we hope that will be up and running soon. We'll be there to hold people accountable if they need to hold people accountable, but we really want to provide an avenue and a mechanism for folks to get treatment before that has to happen. And there's a bunch of other things they're working on. We're really grateful for the work they're doing. The Law Enforcement Chaplaincy of Idaho. is new, and they don't just work with Idaho Falls Police Department. They work in the entire region, but they've been fantastic. They actually responded to the Rigby Middle School shooting. They've responded to a lot of our calls. We have death calls, and we have family members that are grieving and things like that. The chaplains come out have really been a great asset and a great help to the community to help folks get through some of the most traumatic things in their lives. And then we also, it's not necessarily the police department, but the Idaho Falls Fraternal Order of Police Auxiliary was really established and has really got its legs under it. The auxiliary is made up of family members of police officers, and they do a lot of great things. When officers are in critical incidents, they'll take meals to the officers. They provide counseling for family members. They do a lot of great things. They dropped off a whole bunch of thank you bags at the police department today because it's Memorial Week this week. They're also sponsoring the Police Officer Memorial, which is this Friday at 6 p.m. at the Bonneville County Courthouse. And you're all welcome to come down there for the Police Officer Memorial this Friday. But the auxiliary is a great organization, has just done great things for the Idaho Falls Police Department. Another invitation for you, there's the Idaho Falls Police Department Hispanic Outreach Night at the Chuckers. I'm excited about that. Who doesn't want to go to a baseball game again, get a hot dog or a taco? Hopefully they're having tacos that day. That's going to be Thursday, June 3rd at 7:15 p.m. And because I'm jealous of the radio people out in the audience that DJ radio stations, I've always wanted to do this. The first two people to message IFPD on Facebook will get tickets. I think we're going to get 4 tickets each. So first two to message us. That's our contest for the day. And then the last topic I have before we take questions is, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of work on a home for the Idaho Falls Police Department. So as folks probably know, we've been working on this for about 2.5 decades. Back in the middle, late 90s is when they first started working on this. We made tremendous progress in the last 2 years to the point where now we have a funding mechanism in place, land purchased, and we have some really detailed schematic designs, and it's moving along. And I'm going to share with you some of the architect's renderings of what the new facility is going to look like. So this is on Northgate Mile where the stockyards have been. I get a lot of questions about the stockyards. When we purchased this land, one of the agreements with the people selling it is that we would have something at the new police department that recognized the history of the stockyards and that recognized the meaning of the stockyards to the history of Idaho Falls and the people of Idaho Falls. So that was part of the purchase agreement, has always been the plan. And I think we've been working really closely with some historical societies recently to make sure that we honor that agreement. We have something that reflects what its original use was. But this is what it's going to look like. That's the front door there, coming off of Northgate Mile. Just some other pictures, public parking right there. Public would enter through that door right there. Currently, if you try to get the Idaho Falls Police Department, you hit some security officers, Bonneville County security officers. You go through a mag and bag type of area. It's like getting onto an airplane before you can see the Idaho Falls Police Department. This will be much different, much more welcoming, so people can come in and interact with their police officers and talk to them. It's reflective of our desire to be a more community-oriented police department. Some other views. This is the back of the building. Not quite as good looking at the back of the building, but this is what the officers will be in back. This is where they will come in. If you're on a train and you're going past, this is the view you would have from the train tracks. And again, that's what the new police station is going to look like. And so with that, I think that was the end of what I had, and I think we're ready for questions if we have any. Yeah, I'll leave that up there for now.
Okay, we do have some questions. Chief Johnson, how much of the crime increase can you attribute to the growth of the community?
So there is, what you see if you go back 10 years is the community is growing at a pretty steady pace, and that crime rate has been increasing at a pretty steady pace. So those numbers go up 1%, 2%, 3% every year as the population grows, and that's what you would expect to see. The spike in crime we had last year it was unprecedented, and I think it's similar to things you've seen in other metropolitan areas around the country. So that spike we saw in 2020, I don't think is reflective of new people coming into town. What happened in 2020, that was Idaho Falls. The difficulties of the pandemic, everything that people talked about, isolation, with the jail not being able to fully function, with the courts not being able to function. We see what happens in society when all of the institutions aren't able to function at their peak, and I think that's what caused those dramatic spikes. But the crime rate goes up about the same rate that the population goes up, typically.
Okay, very good. We do have a question about demographics and traffic stops, specifically the smaller percentage where the greater percentage of people stopped is higher than the census data reports. Do you have any concerns with the numbers?
I'm not sure I understand which one we're talking about, which number.
So, yeah, I think let's go back to maybe that slide.
Okay, the African American population. So that number tracks almost identical to how it tracked last year. Our African American population is quite small in Idaho Falls. It's similar to when I was talking about the homicide rate. When you have one or two homicides in town, the percentages end up being really big. If you have one or two stops, that changes those percentages. We have such a small population pool that you're talking about. Most of those stops represent just a handful of folks that are having trouble obeying the law. And so I believe still that the officers are stopping people based off of what they are seeing is occurring about the behavior that's occurring, not based off of a demographics for race, and that includes with our African American citizens.
Thank you. What strategies do police officers employ to deal with the emotional toll of the job?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've come a long way in that. We have a pretty good partnership with our employee association, and if I just give a shout out to them, the FOP, they've taken this on as well. So both the city leadership, and the employees recognize this as a big deal. Kind of what they'll say to each other is it's okay to talk now. It used to be rub some dirt on it and move on, and that was kind of the ethos. And what we saw is people would do that for decades and then kind of blow up at the end, and it's a really unhealthy lifestyle. So number one, we're trying to make it more acceptable to just talk about things. Specifically, if we have a major incident or critical incident, we debrief them. We have a really good relationship with Creekside Counseling, and then we have several members of our department that are trained in critical incident debriefing. So after a critical major incident, we'll have someone lead in a debriefing to kind of coax those conversations and those talks out. In addition to that, in this last year, we've added a program with Creekside Counseling where all of our police officers and our dispatchers go for a 1 hour one-on-one session with a counselor at Creekside. It's technically training where they get given skills that they can cope with those things and talk about those things. And then we've also got a cooperative program again with the FOP where if a officer or dispatcher needs to go talk to someone that they don't have to pay for it, it gets covered and they can go talk. So we're trying every last thing we can do to help them deal with it. Another big thing that helps people deal with this type of stress is exercise. So we try to incentivize physical fitness and exercise to keep you active. That's a very healthy way to deal with stress. And we have a whole bunch of things like that we're trying to do. It's a difficult thing. It's a real thing. It impacts every day. And we've gotten better, and we strive to be better every day.
Thank you. What is your favorite part of being chief?
My favorite part of being chief is being with the officers and the dispatchers and the employees. And every month and a half, I just tell them I got to put my old uniform on, just put me in the car and let's go out and take a call, because I gotta remember what we all got into policing for, and that's still my favorite part. My favorite part is when I get to go out and work with them. There was a SWAT call out earlier in 2020. And we have a SWAT commander, an assistant SWAT commander, and then another SWAT commander, and for whatever reason, they were all gone. And so I was there, and I kind of looked around, and I'm like, would you like me to command this one? I went, yeah, you better. So I was grinning from ear to ear. It's like, wow, I get to do real police work again. And to watch those guys operate and to watch how they do stuff so professionally and what a great group of people I get to work with, that is my favorite part. I'm glad that Idaho Falls has become a pretty special place to me. I don't know many communities like Idaho Falls. And to see the support and what this community does back for the police officers, that's pretty darn neat too.
That's wonderful. What trends do you see for the future of solving crimes, technology or other?
Yes, and honestly, our capabilities in the last 3 years have just increased incredibly. That's part of why those clearance rates are going up. We made a lot of news over our work with DNA and genealogy-based research for DNA. We also have the ability to recreate crime scenes in 3D. The detectives at Idaho Falls Police Department will go to other areas on major crimes to help them investigate those crime scenes because we've gotten pretty decent at it. We have some really good technology. Body cameras help as well, recording that stuff, so all of that helps. Old-fashioned police and detective work, though, will never go out of style. You still have to put the work into it, but the technology is a great help.
We have a whole bunch of questions now rolling in. Let's see. What will the new police station have an exit that crosses the railroad tracks?
No. I dream of that sometimes at night, but no, not right now. There's the if I go back to I don't know if I have a picture of that part of it. So the entrance, let's see if I can see that. So on this picture you're looking at, you can pull right into that parking lot, which is the public parking lot, and that's where the public would enter. Then either side of the building right now, there's dirt roads right there. On either side of the building, there'll be a road that goes in on both sides, so there'll be two entrances for the officers to get into the building. That way, one vehicle or one person that wants to shut us down would not be able to do that. We would have double access in and out. That was one of the things we were required, but we won't be able to get over the railroad tracks. They can't isolate us, but the railroad tracks, unfortunately, will be a barrier.
Okay. Another interesting question is, let me see. Some traffic stops are done by the county within Idaho Falls. How are they counted in your statistics?
They are not. They would be counted by the sheriff's office. So whatever the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office, we are inside of the county, so they have jurisdiction inside the city as well. They can make traffic stops. They can do work. The state police, Idaho State Police, also will make traffic stops and work inside of the city. Each of those organizations and agencies will report their data separately, and I don't have necessarily access to that.
Okay, interesting. What is the ratio of police officers on duty on any given day to the IF population? And how many police officer positions are unfilled at this time?
We currently have an authorized strength of 95 police officers. We have 3 vacancies that we're currently trying to hire for. The ratio of police officers to citizens has dropped to its lowest level in over a decade. So we have fewer officers per citizens than we've had in the past. But those officers are sure doing a heck of a job keeping up with the crime rates they have. And was there a last part of that?
How many are on duty during any given day?
So that's a complex question because detectives are working, we have school resource officers. If you're just talking about our patrol complement of officers, depending on time of day, you have between 5 and 10 that are working at any given time.
What are 2 or 3 things you would like to see happen that are not happening now? I'm not exactly sure what that relates to, but maybe broadly speaking, 2 or 3 things that maybe could be important for the community that are happening or not happening?
So, I've been talking for a couple of years about, you saw those numbers for mental health response. And so we have a CIT, a Crisis Intervention Team program that works really well that we do with the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Finding a system where you have a co-response, where you have mental health professionals co-responding with police officers to people in crisis. That's in our strategic plan. That's something we would like to get accomplished. We think that will be a a great benefit to our citizens that are in crisis and help get them a better service. So that's one thing that we would like to see done. I talked about the Greater Idaho Falls Police Foundation. That's working on a lot of different things, including drug treatment. There's also a program called LEAD, which Mr. Danny Clark, the county attorney, has been spearheading. Both of those things, the goal is to get people into treatment for drug treatment, and I think there's a huge need in our community for drug treatment and resources for that. And I think both with the money that's through the state, through the county attorney, and a partnership with the sheriff's office to divert people into treatment, and the foundation's efforts to put resources there, I think that's going to be a great thing. I'm hoping that comes online soon.
Okay, wonderful. Can you recap the timeline for the new police station?
So right now, they just completed the schematic design phase.
It's like Juno.
Yes, it's like Juno, just like Juno.
These are hard words.
And so the architect we engaged has finished that schematic design phase. There'll be a presentation at the next City Council work session, which I don't have the date right in front of me, but it'll be 2 weeks from this last Monday. So a week and a half from now on that Monday, there'll be a presentation done there. People will see all the pictures that we've shown, plus some more detailed designs. There's some more design work that has to be done. After that, it goes out for bidding, and then the construction phase. Our estimate is still that it is April of 2023 when we would be able to move in, so just under 2 years. And as I talked to them yesterday, we are still on budget for getting it done. So there's a lot of work being done. It's a combined project. Our Public Works Department, Director Chris Fredrickson from the Idaho Falls Public Works, he builds things. I don't build things. He builds things. And so he's doing a great job, and his people are doing a great job, and the project's moving on pretty good.
That is such exciting news. How do people get involved in the Citizen Review Board?
So the Citizen Review Board is an appointed board. They're appointed for 3-year terms. There is some training required, so if someone wanted to do that, the first thing they would want to do is contact the police department and look at getting into a Citizens Academy. Right now we don't have one scheduled, but we'll certainly be doing more, and they can go to that academy. The idea is you have to understand the rules of policing before you can really delve into what happened and know if right or wrong was done. But going to that Citizens Academy is a great first step into being involved in that.
Okay, perfect. Just a couple more, and then we'll let you go. What procedures are still impacted by COVID?
There's still some restrictions on who can get into jail, and we work really closely with Sheriff Hulse on those, and he's been opening that up more and more. He's seeing the same numbers, and he's doing what a responsible sheriff would do. But there are still some restrictions on that. We haven't just started taking people to jail like we were pre-pandemic. So some of those restrictions are still in place. The courts have gotten more and more going, but the backlog is, they weren't running trials for a long time, so we have quite a long backlog. So there's a lot of that stuff that still needs to work through the system. There's a lot of people that are innocent until proven guilty, but we've put a case together, and we're anxious for them to have their due process, but we're anxious to protect the community and make sure people that shouldn't be out are locked up. So that's the biggest restriction that's still going on.
So this might be a silly question, but if the people are not able to be transferred to jail, where do these people go that might be troublemakers?
So the violent crimes, those ones I described, they can go to jail. It's that lower level type of crime that we aren't still taking everyone to jail. Having said that, the sheriff has been a great partner, and he has told us multiple times that if someone just needs to go to jail because they're causing a problem, bring them, they'll take them. So we're able to get people that are really troublemakers off the street and get them into jail, and it's getting better. But you still see a whole category of that lower level crime that normally would be enforced, and jail is one of the ways to enforce it, and that's still not being done.
Okay. All right, and last question. What would surprise the general public about the work you do and the department does?
I think the general public sometimes surprised that the amount of work that the police department does. I got here 4 years ago. It's a great city. I love Idaho Falls. It's a great place. And you can have neighborhoods in Idaho Falls where you can grow up and hardly even know that police exist or crime even exists. And that's a great thing. We don't want to take that away. But there's also some real crime, some real issues that occur in Idaho Falls. When I first moved to town, I was talking to a really nice guy that was my neighbor at the time. And we were talking. He first says, "Hey, are you working at the site?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, "I got a site I work at." "Where do you work at?" "You got a site you work at?" I had no clue what he was talking about. But I was like, "No, I don't." Until I'm actually a police officer. I'm going to be the chief of police. And he looks at me, and he has just this look on his face of bewilderment. He goes, "Really? Police? What do you do in Idaho Falls?" And I was like, "Well, we investigate homicides and rapes and aggravated batteries and assaults and sexual assaults and child abuse and family fights and robberies." And I think if the general public really understood the crime rates that have been over the years, they would be a little surprised by that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time very
Thank
much
you.
today. We'll have Liza Leonard back up to close out our meeting today.
Thank you so very much, Chief Johnson, for letting us know a little bit about what's going on at Idaho Falls Police Department. Thank you so much for the service and for everyone on the force and who helps support the work in the community that you do. We appreciate you sharing all these details with us and about the exciting new station. Thank you, Catherine Smith, for also helping to arrange the programs for this month. Just a reminder that next week we will be meeting via Zoom for a classification talk with our fellow Rotarians, so please join us online. Have a great week. Thank you.